Thoughts. We all have them, but thinking, that's different. That's constant. And if I'm being real with you, transparent even, my thinking has held me back from a lot. The self-sabotaging version of me would call it fear, but the healed, honest version of me calls it life. The juggling act of feeling deeply, of trying to land every emotion in a place that makes sense. But the hardest part, letting go of them. Okay, y'all. I know I'm taking it there, but if you haven't noticed by now, this podcast doesn't really follow a typical format, honestly. It's giving, I'm reading my journal out loud, and I'm okay with that because what this has become for me is real-time healing out loud. These episodes are not pre-recorded, no months in advance planning, but the testimony is still alive. These are living, breathing reflections of what I've been moving through, cycles I've been stuck in, lessons I've been learning, breakthroughs I'm finally walking in. And the most recent one, child, it's been years in the making, a cycle I've wrestled with, cried through, grown from. Let's call it what it is. Father issues. Yep, father issues. Here we are, episode 5, father issues. Yes, let's take it in. I'll put a special asterisk because for me, daddy was never a word I got to use, not outside of God at least. I had a father, yes, parentally, but a dad, someone who raised me, guided me, saw me, that felt absent. In dealing with that wound, that cut, it shaped the way I show up in love. It's made dating its own kind of adventure. So as we always do, buckle up and sit tight as we process the issues of the father through carrot, cut, and clarity. So y'all, let's grab those pitchforks and bats. Okay, I'm kidding. I would never tell you guys to grab a pitchfork and a bat. Don't do that. But seriously, let's take a deep breath because I need to take one right now. Let's take one. That was nice. So let us jump into the episode on Gems to Jewels with me, your host, Pri. So let's get into it. Let's get in it. The carrot of this episode, the weight of it all. The part that sits heavy on my spirit, but also reminds me just how valuable this work is. Carrying the absence of a dad, not just a provider, but a present loving man, has shaped how I see myself. It's added weight to my worth, sometimes making me question if I was truly ever worth showing up for. And listen, that's a real thing for me. When your first example of love is fractured, it's easy to think you're the one who's broken. Slowly, painfully, but powerfully, that my value was never up for debate. This part of the episode is about what the weight taught me, about identity, about love, about God. Because even when the people who were supposed to love us fail, that doesn't cancel our value. It doesn't subtract from our shine. It actually reveals how much we've had tender and respectful. You start to believe that maybe you don't get that kind of love. I didn't date. Like, I wasn't in any type of Disney show. Like, I didn't date in middle school, didn't date in high school, nope, to college. And that was a no all across the board. Because I was shielded and then suddenly thrust into adulthood when I moved to New York. It was like going from little league to big leagues overnight. That transition, when I say it rocked me, it rocked me. I went from feeling invisible to feeling hypervisible, desired, lusted after, but not seen, not valued. I hadn't done the inner work yet. I didn't love myself fully. I hadn't even figured out how to like myself without needing someone else to approve of me first. I carried this belief that I wasn't worthy of love, not real love, especially not from men, to be honest. I had been let down, unprotected, and dismissed by my father and essentially like his side of the family. So, love, especially romantic love, always felt like it was something that was out of reach for me. Growing up, I was taught that being chosen depended on how well I could serve. If I cooked, if I cleaned, if I stayed quiet, then maybe I'd be desirable and maybe then I'd be loved. I was a darker skinned, full bodied girl in a Caribbean family that had a lot to say about that. I was told that if I didn't lose weight, if I didn't smell good enough or kept a cleaner hygiene, I wouldn't even be wanted in an intimate way. Those were, you know, insecurities that were projected and misplaced onto me. But I didn't know that as a child. I absorbed it all and it became the weight I carried. So, yeah, this carrot is obviously heavy and big. Not because I'm broken, but because I've survived a skewed sense of what love, desire, and worth were supposed to feel like. And now I'm learning every day to set that weight down, bit by bit, thought by thought, replacing shame with truth, fear with curiosity, and judgment with grace. Now that we've held up the carrot, examining the weight of this wound, the ways it shaped me, I think it's time we move into the cut because truthfully, the shine we desire doesn't come without a little friction. The cut is where we feel the sharpness of our stories, where the shape of our healing is carved out, sometimes with grace and other times with grit. For me, the wound of this cut runs deep. It's jagged, tender, still healing. But if you made it this far, then you're ready to sit with me in the discomfort, in the undoing, in the shaping. So let's go there together. Y'all hold my hand virtually or like pat my back or brush my waves because very wavy. This might be my biggest carrot to date because I'm still living through it. The fatherhood carrot. Some days I'm okay. Other days, when I'm alone with my thoughts for too long, I fall into a parallel universe where, you know, the only station I can land on is suffering. I've never been in a serious relationship. Not because I didn't want to, but because emotionally and physically I wasn't available. I was a war zone, my thoughts, my body, and my past all fighting for control. Leaving Miami for college gave me the space to breathe, space to ask who I am outside of survival. Joining orgs and seeing myself in your rooms helped me build professionally, especially in white spaces. I went to a PWI in Orlando, so navigating that was a whole toll of its own. But emotionally, especially when it came to love, I was still that same girl, out of place, older and unsure, a transfer student trying to catch up to life that felt like it already started without me. I personally didn't have time for a whole phase in college. Like that was honestly not my MO. Though I was told I should, participate and get that out my way. That wasn't in my plan. My plan was to get into my major, pass my classes on time, try not to get excess hours, and get out. I had a plan. Degrees, but New York, child, by the time I got to New York and when I landed in New York broke me and built me back in ways I never imagined. The men here are different, okay? And I mean that in every way. I went from feeling invisible to being desired, lusted after, and that shook me because I hadn't done the emotional work yet. I hadn't learned to love or even like myself in that aspect. I had grown up being told that I wasn't desirable. I had grown up being told, or I wouldn't say told because I don't want anyone to be like, oh, Pri, that's not true. These are my feelings. So I felt like I was being told that I wasn't desirable, that I needed to shrink to be seen, that if I didn't learn to cook and clean and be submissive, that I would never be chosen. Being dark and a heavy girl, I was constantly warned that if I didn't fix myself, even sex wouldn't even be a comfortable option for me. Those weren't just words, they were curses planted in me by women who were hurting too. Now I see it for what it is, projected pain, but back then it shaped my world, and dating for me felt like something reserved for someone else, not like a girl like me. Therapy helped me, prayer helped, journaling helped. Y'all, I remember asking my therapist in my first session, like we got to the middle of the first session, and I was just like, all right, how do I do it? And my therapist was like, how do you do what? I said, how do I be confident? And God bless her soul, she was so gentle and so soft with me and was just like, oh, sweetheart, that's something you have to build on your own. At that moment, I just wanted my copay back. I was like, this is a scam. This is a lie. I was looking for the cheat code, but healing does not come in mantras. It comes in moments, in stillness and surrender. I had to battle my own thoughts. My mind was prosecuting me daily, telling me I wasn't enough, that my daddy issues made me broken, and then came to the experience that cracked me open again. Healing doesn't happen in isolation, and unfortunately, neither does heartbreak. Let me tell y'all, here we go for a story time. Let's get into it. Let me tell y'all about a night that was meant to be fun, but instead brought me face to face with my deepest fear. That being vulnerable, real, and ready was still not enough. So let's paint the scene. We at a party, a birthday party in New York. And if you know anything about Black people when we're at an open bar, especially in New York, then you already know it's not just a vibe. It's like high key a mission. It's like 40 plus people in a bar. There is only one bartender, no servers. And if you know anything with Black people, we're always trying to get at least 2 drinks per trip. So once I seen there was one bartender and I didn't even have a close range to the bar, I had to strategize. Honestly, I almost didn't go to this party because I had recently cut ties with a friend and I didn't want to risk like having an awkward moment. But let's be real, I personally was not getting far on the dating apps. I'm no longer a dating app soldier. I have decommissioned myself, and I personally know myself. I know that I shine better in person. My energy, my warmth, you feel it when I walk into a room. Like when Pop Smoke said shake the room, when I come in I shake the room. Like honestly, like I just had to tell myself go, because I knew if I wanted to meet someone it would have to be through real life and proximity and not swipes and small talk, to be honest. I found myself at the bar in a little trio, me and a girl and another guy. Didn't know any of them. Between a conversation and a little charm and maybe my desperation for a drink, I ended up not with just one drink. I ended up with 3 drinks. The guy offered me his own drink. I mean, smooth. But long story short, numbers were exchanged, banter was had, and for once, I was cute, confident, and I was seen. But then I ghosted him. Yes. I was the one who disappeared for 2 weeks, 2 whole weeks. So there were several things that led to me, so to speak, air quotes, sabotaging. It was a holiday time and I knew that I was going out of town, but if I'm honest, also fear. real fear. The kind that whispers, don't get too close. The kind that says, you're going to ruin it anyway. But eventually, I got the courage to reach back out. I sent a little cute Happy New Year's text with a hug emoji, trying to soften the landing. And, when shooters shoot, they score. And he responded back. And a few messages later, we made plans to have a date the next day. Y'all, when I say it was probably one of the best first dates I've ever had, I'm not exaggerating. Like, it flowed. It felt easy. I wasn't pretending or performing. I was honestly just me. It was a brunch, so we were there for a while. Even after the brunch, I went back to his place for a little smoke session. Nothing extra, just music, vibes, chatter, laughter. What adults do when we smoke. It's just the whole experience. It even ended on a positive note. Ordered my Uber home, and this is where we get into the cycle of thoughts. The moment I sat in that Uber, I had a thought that I've had too many times before. The first thing I say once I get into the Uber and the door closes, I literally just say, this is too good to be true. And that's where it all fell apart. Because the moment I doubted the goodness, my goodness, I gave fear the will again. A few days later, I came to find out that he was related to Casper. He ghosted me. But, this ghosting felt different. It wasn't like the others, because this time I had shown up fully, authentically, vulnerably. I had done the work. I didn't shrink myself. I didn't code switch. I didn't play a game. And when it still didn't work, I spiraled. I'm not going to lie. My mind told me it was my fault, that maybe I was too honest, maybe too real, maybe too comfortable, that maybe the shame I had evicted from my house had crept back in through the back dating door. It sent me into a tunnel of worst case scenarios mentally, rehearsing pain before it even happened. And this is where the cut got sharp. Because this wasn't just about him ghosting me. It was about every man who didn't show up. My father who disappeared. The men who fetishized me. The voices in my head that said, you're not worth loving unless you're perfect. And I believed them for a minute. I was on trial in my own mind. Matthew 5:44 says, pray for those who persecute you. But what happens when you're the one who's persecuting yourself? Healing while dating is hard. It's a duality that I've had to embrace, and I had to know that there was not enough healing that could be done for me to have to wait to date. I would have to do it at the same time. Especially when you don't have the right tools or the safe space or a blueprint that looks like you. I don't see myself reflected in reality TV love stories. I don't see plus-size Black women being desired without conditions. So believing in my own desirability, that's spiritual warfare. And sometimes I use God like an accessory in dating. Instead of as an anchor, I'd consult him optionally when it got too painful or too confusing. But I'm telling y'all, the minute I surrendered fully, everything changed. I didn't just get ghosted. I got confronted with myself. And the wound cut deep. But a cut, it's also what gives a gem its brilliance. So now we move into the clarity. To be honest, and I think I'm being sometimes maybe too honest, I've done a lot of work on myself these past few months, maybe the last, 150 days, to be honest. And I can genuinely feel the difference, see the difference, not just in my habits, but in my heart posture. It's not a performance. It's a brand refresh. It's me grounded in God. My time in prayer, reading scripture, journaling, being in small groups, fellowshipping with other women of faith, it's helped me pull out the real lessons from my wounds. Not just why things hurt me, but what God was trying to heal through them. And look, let's keep it real. I've still dated since then. I've still met people, and matter of fact, if I'm being quite honest, I got ghosted again maybe like 48 hours ago. And yeah, that is what dating is, being ghosted and all these other things. But what's different now is that I didn't let it send me spiraling because I made a decision. I will not let temporary experiences dictate permanent beliefs about myself or my future. I've learned not to focus on the curses I've created in my mind, but instead to focus on God promises. Verses like Psalm 91, verse 1 through 3 remind me that I'm covered, I'm protected, and I'm seen. And even Genesis 15, that my personal reminder that God honors the desires I've brought to him. I don't need to fight for what's already been promised. I just need to make more room in my thoughts, in my heart, for that promise to take root. And when my thinking starts to spiral, I do something radical. I invite God into the punishment. I bring him into the shame, into the I'm not enough, into the overthinking, into the over-explaining, and I call my wounds out by name. That's where the clarity comes in. When I stop pretending I'm fine, I start practicing presence. When I stop reacting from my triggers and start responding from my truth. That is the most beautiful part about my healing journey. Not that I don't just get hurt anymore, but I don't stay there. I give my pain purpose. I give my thoughts structure. I give God my whole heart and not just the pretty parts. And in doing that, I finally made room for joy. Real, grounded, sustaining joy. Clarity, it's the moment when the fog starts to lift, when the voice of fear gets quieter and the voice of the truth starts to speak up. And for me, just like confidence, believing is believing. I had to train my mind to believe what was true, even if it didn't feel true. Because confidence is not just walking into a room feeling seen. It's telling yourself the truth when no one is around to remind you who you are. The truth became my weapon against the thoughts that wanted to undo me. In those moments, when anxiety would creep in or a wave of panic would rise, I would have to stop and just breathe and plant myself back into reality. Sometimes that meant counting down 5 things I can see, 4 things I can touch, 3 things I can hear, 2 things I can smell, and 1 truth I can believe. It sounds simple, but I promise you it's sacred. And in those moments, I would invite God, not as a last resort, but as my grounding. I would say out loud, I am here, I am loved, I am safe, I am whole, and I am not alone. I'd look around the room and call out the color of my shirt, the way the lights hit my skin, the smell of coffee, or the lotion on my pillow. That's how I learned to fight back with truth. Not performative positivity, not fake affirmations, but actual presence. Clarity didn't come from pretending everything was okay. It came from acknowledging what was real and letting that be enough. I am not flawless like a gem. I was found deep beneath pressure, cracked in places where the light couldn't reach. I was cloudy with questions, fogged by silence, scratched by hands that didn't know how to handle me. But even diamonds with inclusion still shine, and even on the clearest stone can still break. So I stopped trying to look perfect, though I do look sickening and smell amazing. I'm still learning to love the clarity that comes from the truth, even if it's messy, even if it's slow, even if it's just for me. There's a particular jewel I think of when I reflect on my journey, the salt and pepper diamond. It's a stone with visible inclusions, dark flecks, smoky spots, imperfections that would most consider flaws. But here's the beautiful part. It's those imperfections that make the diamond one of a kind. No two are the same, no copy and paste shine, just a raw, rugged, real radiance. And that's me. That's you. That's clarity. Not the absence of confusion or conflict, but the presence of honesty, the invitation of God into the process of surrendering the shame. Sometimes when I feel the spiral begin, I don't fight it. I pause and I say what's true. Here's a practice I do in real time. Name 5 things I see. The color of my shirt, a window, a light, a person, my hands. Name 4 things I can feel. My feet on the ground, my phone in my hand, my heartbeat, my breath. Name 3 things I can hear. A car passing, my loud neighbor downstairs, and then my own voice. Name 2 things I can smell. The candle burning and my perfume. Name 1 thing I know for sure. God has not forgotten about me. Now, I love to give you guys a journal prompt because I love to give and do a good journal prompt. So take a moment and write this out. What parts of my past are still clouding my clarity? Where have I mistaken protection for rejection? How can I invite God into the parts of me I've been trying to fix alone? What promise am I holding on to even when I feel ghosted by life? I would like to lead us out in a closing prayer. God, I surrender my wounds, not in shame, but in trust. I give you my thoughts when they run too fast, and my heart when it grows too tired. Thank you for showing me that even clouded stones still shine, making me bold in my truth, confident in your love, and clear in your presence. Amen. So let's wipe these tears. This is why this episode took a while to come out. It was just a lot. So if you are still here with me, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for holding space, for listening, for witnessing this cut, this slice of my story that was sharp, tender, and still healing. Here's what I've learned. Just because you've been cut doesn't mean you've been broken. And just because something feels cloudy doesn't mean it lacks value. The truth is, clarity isn't always clean. Sometimes it looks messy, journaling at 2 a.m. or me recording a podcast at 2:11 a.m. And sometimes it sounds like a prayer whispered through tears. Sometimes it feels like sitting in silence and realizing you are still here, still whole, and still becoming. I'm not done. You're not done. But you guys, my jewels, we're not where we started. So whether you're in the middle of the mess, just emerging from it, or walking back into it with new strength, know this. You are a gem. You are being refined. And with every cut comes more clarity. Until next time, stay grounded, stay glowing, and remember, transformation is real and you are worthy of every facet. Be sure to follow me on Gems of Jewel Pod on Instagram and all platforms. And also feel free to follow my personal page, What About Pre? Please let me know how you feel in the comments or even slide into my DMs. I'm open to chat. This has been Gems to Jewels. I'll see you soon. Peace.